What I'll talk about now is where the political, economic, social, religious, esoteric and scientific factors come into what we might call the New World Order or the setting up of it. I'll just go through some examples and we'll work it out. Okay, let's start off with global warming. Now, this includes the scientific aspect, the political aspect, and the economic aspect. And lately, you've had the Pope, for whatever reason, saying that we have to save the Earth. Even though he's not a scientist or really anyone who can affect anything, he can only give his opinion, but now it's been dictated that it is some sort of order from God that global warming has to be challenged and ended. Global warming, or whatever its buzzword is today, whether it be climate change, global warming, greenhouse effect, what you should remember is that apocalyptic claims of catastrophe by weather originated in the 1970s, where you had what was going to be called the New Ice Age. Well, that didn't pan out for those pushing it. So it's gone on to global warming, climate change, whatever. And we see the global warming mob, they go for political indoctrination. They try and have it taught in schools, the Earth's coming to the end. And you've also got the scientific aspect. But remember, the scientists are in government pay, and you only do what your boss pays you to do. And in a lot of circumstances where we see that there's climate change, or whatever they want to call it now, it's not adding up to early predictions. And we also see, the people who push this seek to gain a lot of money. And indeed there are companies that gain a lot of money by supporting political parties within government, who in turn pay the scientists, and I think I use that term loosely because I don't see them as true scientists. You've had the former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, who was always big on pushing climate change. We've got to go back to the Stone Age or whatever. And there was a king tide in Brisbane, which is where he lives, and it floods all over the place. And of course a lot of people lost their houses and the like. But he was the first one to go back to the flooded areas and buy up the property dirt cheap. So it couldn't have been that much of a concern to him, and the king tide does happen in Brisbane, though it'd be many years, or we say decades, before the next one of such a magnitude. Also in Australia you have the likes of Tim Flannery, who was pushing climate change, the Earth's going to catch on fire, etc. There's going to be floods, the ocean levels are going to rise. And the time he was pushing this, he was living on a riverside residence. I believe it was Fiddletown in Sydney, and not cheap at all, very exclusive. So you got these people pushing this stuff, and you got the social aspect too. because you have all dumbass kids saying, oh, the earth's going to flood over, it's going to boil, the water's going to boil, and you're saying this would be a prime example of wetiko, psychological illness transmitted by psychological means. So we've got, with the Pope saying his PC garbage, we're seeing all 5 aspects joined together. And this is a global movement, it isn't something that's confined to areas which might geographically be prone to such things. And we're seeing the political aspect played out very strongly where it becomes law, and in international trade agreements and treaties, that this climate change has to be stopped by whatever means. And you have the likes of, we've seen in Australia in the Labor Party where people say, oh, you've got to have cold showers to save the earth. But do you reckon they ever took a cold shower? No way on earth. No, we have such utter lies, and these are pushed as absolute truths. And if you were to question, something like climate change, you'll be told straight off the science has been settled. That the science is definite, and this is true because it's mandated by law, by government. And the science cannot be settled because, according to scientists, who are by and large atheists, they say the science cannot be definite because it is constantly ever changing. Like, the same people push climate change are the same people who push evolution, even though there's no evidence of evolution, or evolution as we can see it. And so they resort to politically mandated terms and words, and it doesn't make sense. And I don't think the people who write this stuff don't care to make sense. They do care about your level of intelligence, and thus we see the world falling into submission by entertainment or by surveillance and action. If you look at the writings of Aldous Huxley and George Orwell, who wrote Brave New World and 1984 respectively, they both see a similar type of ending. And, I just mentioned that Huxley and Orwell actually knew each other. I think Huxley was Orwell's teacher in Oxford or Eton, something like that. But Huxley said the world would be entertained into submission, and we do see that. And he had Orwell said, no, there'll be constant surveillance, so people will be too scared to do anything. And we do see it as well. So we've got 2 similar veins of method, which will ultimately end up in the same result. So like, we're dealing with climate change. We can also deal with the likes of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We've got the issue of race, very important, because we're seeing a new caste, what I call the new patricians, who see themselves as God Kings on earth. Oh yes, and we also got what you call, which kind of relates to the racial aspect. The trans, which can be transracial, trans-species, transhuman. People are being reinvented without their consent, and this groupthink, herdthink, mobthink, wetiko, animal magnetism is being used to achieve such ends by people who would not adhere to it themselves. How you would see something, how they see something are completely different. I'll go into that in my next clip.